Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, huge breaking news just maybe about an hour and a half ago. President Trump is at a NATO summit in Ankara, Turkey, and dramatic developments now have taken place. The president now has told every single NATO member and the world that the ceasefire with Iran is over. Absolutely over. He said he is done with the Iranian leadership. According to the president, and I promise I will play you all of the cuts because we have them, but just to let you know how angry and furious he is, and I don't blame him, he says that there is no point negotiating with this regime. In the president's words, quote, "They're scum, liars, and cheaters," unquote. And so here now is exactly what has taken place. As you know, our negotiating team, Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, have been trying to negotiate with the Iranians during this interim peace agreement or this memo of understanding during a 60-day tentative fragile ceasefire. However, Iran decided, in particular, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, decided on Tuesday to attack multiple commercial ships and vessels going through the Strait of Hormuz, including a tanker filled with liquefied natural gas. And the reason why Iran launched these attacks in the midst of these negotiations, and remember, part of the MOU, part of the memo of understanding or this preliminary ceasefire, was that Iran would allow ships to go through safely through the Strait of Hormuz, that shipping would not be harassed or attacked, that the Strait of Hormuz would be reopened, and that the transiting of all of these tankers and vessels would no longer be subject to Iranian control or Iranian harassment or Iranian influence. Well, the Iranians lied. And they're clearly trying to reassert their control over the strait by telling these ships they cannot go through other routes in the strait. There was one that was cleared out by the United States and a country called Oman, which is across from Iran. They also have joint control over the Strait of Hormuz. And the Iranians said, no. You're not going to go through that southern route, which is demined and controlled by the United States right near the country of Oman. You have to go specifically through the route that we instruct for you. So the Iranians are now in the middle of negotiations trying to reassert their control and dominance over the Strait of Hormuz. And they decided now to launch drones and missile strikes or missiles at commercial vessels, a clear violation of the ceasefire. President Trump ordered a massive response. And over the last, I would say, maybe 6 to 8 hours, we have launched devastating airstrikes, missile strikes, hitting about 80 sites, 80 targets along the entire coast of Iran on the Strait of Hormuz. Iran now has responded. They have retaliated. They have now launched a barrage of cruise missile strikes and drones at U.S. bases and other targets in Kuwait and Bahrain. The ceasefire is over. The war is escalating. And right now, listen to the president. When asked by a reporter, he said, asking, is the memorandum of understanding, the MOU, is this thing now over? Are the negotiations, for all intents and purposes, finished? Listen to the president's response. It's breaking all over the world. Roll cut 5, Mike. Mike, are we having technical difficulties?
Is the ceasefire over? Is the ceasefire done? Is the MOU dead?
It's a very interesting question. To me, I think it's over. I don't want to deal with them anymore. They're scum. You know what scum is? They're scum. They're sick people. They're led by sick people. And they're vicious, violent people. And if they had a nuclear weapon, they'd use it. As far as I'm concerned, it's over.
So, now he says the ceasefire is over. The MOU is over. And, you're saying, well, whoa, Jeff, hey, at a summit in the midst of negotiations where the president is trying to wind down the war, get oil prices down, end this thing, get ready for the midterms, keep gas and prices at the pump as the lowest possible, to call them scum and to say they're violent and vicious. Whoa, maybe the president, maybe let his temper get the better of him. No. He offered them the ability to sell oil in exchange for U.S. dollars on the international market. He gave them that. He gave them potentially access to billions of dollars to start rebuilding their country as a good faith gesture just to get these negotiations started. And they broke their promises again. Again, the promises they made on that memorandum of understanding aren't worth the paper it was written on. And so what President Trump has now done, he has now revoked the waivers, the license for Iran to sell their oil. They can no longer sell their oil. He has now revoked it maybe about 2 hours ago. So the Iranians now, they're so dumb that now they will not be able to sell oil. They need the money desperately. I guess they don't care. And now the next step is most likely going to be that the president is going to reimpose the suffocating blockade on all Iranian ports, all Iranian commerce. The Iranians now say they are going to start mining the Strait of Hormuz again, and they're going to start shooting at ships. They're going to close the Strait of Hormuz down. And the ceasefire now is in complete tatters. Listen to President Trump saying, look, if Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner want to continue to negotiate, I'm not going to tell them don't negotiate. But I think that now they're wasting their time. There's nothing to talk about because these mullahs, the IRGC, as Trump put it, are liars, cheaters, and there's something seriously wrong with these people in the head. Roll cut 5A, Mike.
I'll speak to our negotiators. They want to negotiate. They're good people. Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner. But they have to come back to me. As far as I'm concerned, it's just a waste of time dealing with them. They're liars. We make a deal. And if I make a deal with him, we have a deal. And he goes out, he talks. We make a deal. Everyone's agreed. No nuclear weapon. We make a deal. They go outside, talk to the press. They say, we never even talked about it. There's something wrong with them. They're cuckoo. As far as I'm concerned, it's over.
Now, the person that he was pointing to, and when he said, if I make a deal with him, he means he was sitting beside NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. So basically what he's saying is, okay, if I'm dealing with a European official or a Canadian official or a Western official, we have a deal, The paper is the paper, and what's agreed on is what's agreed on. And, he'll go out and talk to the media. I'll go out and talk to the media. And, basically we're, whatever. We could say we got the better end of it. They can say they got the better end of it. But we're talking about the same freaking piece of paper. With these guys, we're talking about, ending their nuclear program. We have a deal, no nukes. And these idiots come out and say, no, we never even talked about it. So clearly, they never were negotiating in good faith. They were never interested in negotiating in good faith. Now, he's then asked, will talks resume? Listen now to Trump. He's basically shutting the door. Roll cut 6, Mike.
Does this mean that talks with Iran will not resume?
I don't care. They can talk, but I think they're wasting their time. They're a bunch of lying guys. I do my whole life. That's all I do is deals. My whole life that's how I became president. I guess that's a deal too, right? But I made a lot of money. I had a lot of great success. Tremendous success. Everything I did, I was successful. And I deal with these guys, and I say, this is from a different school. They're liars. They're cheats. They're sick people.
Mr. President, you know how much I love you. I love you, my friend. But I don't want to say I told you so, but I told you so. Yeah, from a different school? How about a different planet? How about a different universe? All right, Mike, he's done with them. I don't blame him. I don't blame him because you're negotiating with 7th century medieval barbarians. Okay, if you're just tuning in, it's the story all over the world. President Trump, maybe about an hour and a half ago, maybe 2 hours, I guess now. But anyway, at the NATO summit in Turkey, he's had it. He now has come out and said the ceasefire with Iran is over. The memorandum of understanding is over. He says there is nothing to negotiate anymore with the leadership in Iran, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. According to the president, his words, not mine. They are scum, he called them, liars, cheaters, sickos, cuckoo, sick in the head, that there is no point in having any negotiations with them. They don't keep their word. And the latest sort of skirmish in the Strait of Hormuz is really now the straw that's broken the camel's back. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps yesterday deliberately targeted 3 commercial vessels that had permission to go through the Strait of Hormuz, but the Iranians now want to assert full control and dominance in the midst of negotiations. And so they fired drones and missiles. One of them was an oil tanker filled with liquefied natural gas. Trump ordered a massive response, about 6-8 hours of strikes. They pounded over 80 positions and targets. They hit air defense systems. They hit command and control. They hit missile launchers. They hit anything, small boats. They destroyed about 60 small boats. And so they responded with fire and fury. Iran now has escalated. They have launched a barrage of missiles and drones at U.S. military bases and other targets in Kuwait and Bahrain. Kuwait and Bahrain now have come out and said this is an act of aggression by Iran. They are targeting civilian areas as well. They are now using interceptors and anti-missile systems to try to shoot down the drones and the missiles that are raining upon their people and upon their cities. So it's gotten very serious, very hot, a hot war, fast. Listen now to the President of the United States chastising the entire media in Turkey at the NATO summit, saying not only are they crazy, they're vicious, they're murderous, and yet none of you want to report the tens and tens of thousands of Iranians that this regime has slaughtered before the war began, during the war, and even after during the ceasefire. Roll cut, meaning dissidents within Iran. Roll cut 6A, Mike.
They've hurt their people. They killed 54,000 people as of now that were protesting. You know, when people say, how come they haven't taken over? They can't take over because they're dead. They killed them. Nobody's going to take over. They have no guns, and the other side has machine guns. And they're killing them. The press doesn't report it. But they're bad people. They're bad people. And frankly, I don't want to waste my time with them. Now, I'll let our wonderful negotiators keep talking if they want, but I don't see it.
So basically, I get the sense, I mean, you can agree or disagree, but here's my take. He's thrown up his hands. He's exhausted the diplomatic route. You want to talk about giving peace a chance, giving diplomacy a chance. He's more than bent over backwards to try to get a diplomatic settlement out of this. And they just keep smacking us in the face over and over and over and over again. In fact, let me just add to you a little bit more And then I'm going to go to the phones. 617-266-6868 is the number. According now to senior U.S. officials, and it looks like it's coming from people within the negotiating team, they say that Iran has hardly discussed anything during the negotiations. According to them, I'm just telling you what our negotiators are revealing. Quote, no substantive issues have been discussed at all. That basically the negotiations, they've been stringing us along. They're not serious about discussing their nuclear program, nuclear weapons, dismantling their nuclear weapons, anything in terms of the memorandum of understanding that they had allegedly agreed to. Furthermore, many of them are not even showing up to the negotiations because the Ayatollah, the one that was killed, Khamenei, at the beginning of the war, Iran has been holding a 6-day funeral. 6 days. I mean, I've heard of a 2-day funeral. I've even heard of a 3-day funeral. I've never heard of a 6-day funeral. So, this never-ending funeral. And by the way, at the funeral, over 6 days, it has been IRGC, Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, and they run Iran now. They're the military political force that now really runs Iran. IRGC spokesman after another got up, death to America, death to Trump, death to Israel. That's all they kept chanting over and over and over. And you see millions of fanatics on the streets. And when the IRGC say death to Trump, they repeat death to Trump. When they say death to America, they repeat death to America. When they say death to the Jews, they chant death to the Jews. And of course, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. So the Iranian leadership is convinced that they won the war, that they're now in a much better position than they were before the war began, that Trump desperately needs a deal. They do not want to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. They obviously don't. And they believe now that they own the Strait of Hormuz.
Is the ceasefire over? Is the ceasefire done? Is the MOU dead?
It's a very interesting question. To me, I think it's over. I don't want to deal with them anymore. They're scum. You know what scum is? They're scum. They're sick people. They're led by sick people. And they're vicious, violent people. And if they had a nuclear weapon, they'd use it. As far as I'm concerned, it's over.
6:33 on the great WRKO. That was President Trump just a couple hours ago at the NATO summit in Turkey. The ceasefire is over. The memorandum of understanding, for all intents and purposes, is now over. We have already launched massive strikes along the Strait of Hormuz in response to the Iranian leadership, and I can't believe they did this. I mean, part of me is not surprised. I I said, you don't deal with these people. It's like a den of vipers. But he gave them so much. And it was so much in their economic interest to keep the Strait of Hormuz open, to keep selling their oil on the open market, to eventually get to unfreezing over $100 billion in assets and a potential $400 billion reconstruction fund. There were so many economic incentives. And yet these primitive, medieval, Islamo-fascist barbarians couldn't help themselves. And they started to target and launch missiles and drones against commercial vessels, including oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz, because they want to completely dominate and control the strait as they're talking to our face. So they're saying one thing to us and a very opposite thing, trying to establish facts on the ground, claiming the strait for themselves. And Trump now clearly understands they're not negotiating in good faith. They never wanted to negotiate in good faith. And so now the question is, what's going to be Trump's next move? What should be his next move? He's already revoked their waiver or their license to sell oil on the international market. So now they're going to lose tens of billions of dollars right now, right away. And it looks like there's going to be many more airstrikes, missile strikes to come. I believe he should reimpose the blockade, put Iran, the Iranian economy, right back into a vice grip, blockade their ports, blockade their commerce, blockade everything. And then I think he has to make a decision. Does he want to topple the regime? Does he want to come in and take Karg Island? Does he want to now take out some of these vital islands in the Strait of Hormuz? Does he want to send in the U.S. Navy and militarily we will forcibly reopen the strait? We shall see what the next move will be. But as far as everything now the president has said, everything the Iranians have done, this thing is over. The ceasefire is dead. Are you surprised? And what do you think Trump should do? 617-266-6868 is the number. Lines are blazing. Eddie in Charlestown. Thanks for holding, Eddie, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Eddie.
I'm not completely surprised, but you have to give the president some credit. He wanted to do it the peaceful way, and it didn't work. So now what he has to do is go in there, take control of the strait, take control of the islands, hit their bridges, hit their power plants, hit them so goddamn hard that let them feel what the Japanese felt in World War II, even worse, because these people are worse than the Japanese, okay? And I just want to say it, and I hate to say it, but they want the nuclear weapon, give them the nuclear weapon right in their lap, and end it all, because these people cannot be negotiated with. They don't want peace. Thousands, millions of people chanting death to America. It's going to come down to either them or us. So instead of going around there, tiptoeing around, go in there full force, take control of the strait, take control of this island, have a D-Day invasion, and end it all. Because if not, this thing is going to turn into World War III.
Well, Eddie, the problem with that, and I hear you, I really hear where you're coming from. The problem with that is I don't think Trump wants to put boots on the ground. I think he's very reluctant to put boots on the ground. And because what you're talking about is American boots on the ground, maybe even Israel, obviously, helping us out. And it's no question, U.S. troops and Israeli troops can be devastating if we combine our forces, but that's going to mean casualties. And as President Trump said, the American people, his words, not mine, that's exactly what I'm quoting him practically verbatim. The American people do not have the stomach to see many American men and women get cut down in a war. They don't want to see Americans coming home dead in body bags. And so if that happens, he believes he's going to lose the American people and they're going to force a withdrawal, a humiliating withdrawal from Iran. Now, the generals have given him a strategy for an all-out war that includes some ground troops, but limited. There's given him two options. One, no ground troops. The other, limited ground troops. I think the president is now almost about to pick either one or the other. I think he's going to go for an all-out war and an all-out knockout. But I think he's going to try to rely on air power, missiles, our Navy, maybe some covert activities as well, arming some of these groups within Iran that hate the Ayatollahs, maybe have the CIA and have these Iranians become, or the Kurds who don't like the Iranian leadership, maybe have them be our boots on the ground. But I think there's no question now. You see, he's got another problem, Eddie. Look, I'm not saying we can't solve this. We can. But I just want people to understand this is what's in Trump's mind. Remember what he said when he said, look, why did I push so hard for a ceasefire? Why did I put up with so much to get to a ceasefire? Because if the Strait of Hormuz remains shut for an extended period of time, it will trigger a global depression. And this will have a massive impact on the U.S. economy. And as he famously said, I didn't run for office to be the next Herbert Hoover. So he's got to pull off now a war or resume the war, minimal troop loss, minimal loss of life on our end, and it's got to be quick so that the Strait of Hormuz is not blocked for an extended or prolonged period of time, because he wants to avoid the massive economic consequences, in particular the oil shocks to the global economy. So he's got to come out with a devastating lightning blow, minimizing deaths on our end and really damaging the regime quick enough, fast enough, so it doesn't, hurt the world economy. He doesn't want this thing to go on for another month or two. So we'll see what they'll come up with. I think they're going to go and attack Tehran. That's my sense. I think they're going to try to reopen the Strait of Hormuz by using our military. I think they're working with the Israelis as I speak to you now. And I think they're just going to take out the entire leadership. They're going to decapitate the entire leadership. And that's his knockout blow. I mean, we'll see what happens. But I think at this point he's saying, look, there's no point in negotiating. Who cares who's leading them? There's no point negotiating with these people. They lie to your face. They cheat. And they say one thing to you in private and the exact opposite in public. So at this point, negotiation is just a waste of time. And he's 1,000% correct. And look, to give the president his due, because many are saying, well, he should have known this. Well, look, he wanted to give diplomacy and peace a chance.
Speak to our negotiators. They want to negotiate. They're good people. Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner. But they have to come back to me. As far as I'm concerned, it's just a waste of time dealing with them. They're liars. We make a deal. And if I make a deal with him, we have a deal. And he goes out, he talks. We make a deal. Everyone's agreed. No nuclear weapon. We make a deal. They go outside, talk to the press. They say, we never even talked about it. There's something wrong with them. They're cuckoo. As far as I'm concerned, it's over.
651 now on the great WRKO. That was President Trump just several hours ago. The memorandum of understanding is kaput. It is finished. It is over. As Trump said, the ceasefire now is done. President Trump said he's had it after Iran inexplicably, and I really want to stress this, there was no provocation whatsoever. These were commercial vessels who were going through the Strait of Hormuz on the southern side, which is the area that was demined by the United States along a route right beside the Oman, the country of Oman. And the Iranians obviously wanted to dominate the entire strait. When they saw these ships going by this route laid out in the Strait of Hormuz alongside the country of Oman, they started to fire drones and missiles at these ships, including one, it was a tanker full of liquefied natural gas. A clear violation of the ceasefire, a naked violation of the ceasefire. Trump ordered a massive military retaliation. The Iranians now have escalated. They are now launching, as I speak to you, missile and drone strikes on our bases in Kuwait, in Bahrain, but they are also targeting other areas across Kuwait and Bahrain, and most likely they're going to hit other Gulf states. So the war is now escalating. The ceasefire has completely unraveled. President Trump now says there is no point in even talking with them because, as he put it, they're liars, cheaters, and quote-unquote scum. So let me ask you, it is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. Are you surprised that the Iran MOU, the Iran Memorandum of Understanding, is over and hostilities are back on. A, yes, you are surprised. B, no, you're not surprised. You knew this was going to happen the whole time. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN is in national ER. You can also vote via X. And yes, I was active on X last night. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, KUHNER. Let me just quick point, and I want to go to the phones. My heart the whole time said, don't trust them. It's like negotiating with a snake or a viper. All they're interested in is to sting you and to kill you. That they're never going to abide by these terms. My head told me, same thing, I don't trust them. It's not worth the paper it's written on. But to be fair, because I think people are unfairly attacking Trump, the Iranians spent weeks and weeks. I'm talking about haggling, negotiating, clawing every detail in that memorandum of understanding, almost to the point where which side of the table do we sit on? Which side of the table do you sit on? The way they just spent days, even weeks, on every little point, I think gave the false impression to the president, to his negotiating team, and frankly, to many people, I'm like, well, if they're going to negotiate that hard, I don't know, maybe they do. Maybe a couple of them have come to their senses, the so-called moderates, who have half a brain, and they're going to take this incredible offer by Donald Trump, and they're actually going to negotiate something. Because why go through all this effort? And not just go through all this effort. I mean, obviously now they were playing us along. They were just stringing us along, and that's all it was. But because the other side was this, and I think this is what's clarified everything. And I'm not saying this as a criticism of the president. The president offered them the moon. He practically gave them the moon. I mean, President Trump, through JD, through Steve Witkoff, through Kushner, told the Iranians again and again to their face, no one in the world is going to give you a better offer than this. We're going to rebuild your country from the ground up. You can keep most of your military, just no nuclear weapons. You're going to get a $300 billion reconstruction fund. You're going to get $120 billion in unfrozen assets back. You're going to sell all of your oil, all of your petrochemicals, all of your exports without sanctions. And you're going to get paid in U.S. dollars, something that you've never had since the revolution in 1979. Hell, you guys are going to be swimming in petro cash, in oil money, and in reconstruction money. And the regime gets to stay in power. I don't know how much more I mean, literally, you want my wife? You want my wife? What? I don't know what else to give you. And the promise of a new relationship with the United States, the promise of a new relationship with their neighbors, the promise of a new relationship with the region, and full reintegration back into the international community. I mean, he gave them everything. It's the most generous offer I think any president has ever given to a defeated foe. They lost the war. And forget an olive branch. Forget the extended hand. He gave them a bank with almost unlimited cash. And he said, look, just no nuclear weapons. That's it. And the Strait of Hormuz. You're not going to charge tolls. You don't need to charge tolls. We're giving you so much freaking money. So the Strait of Hormuz is free, unrestricted passage like it was before the war. So you haven't even lost anything because you never had control over the strait. And just don't get a nuclear weapon. Why? Because you guys are freaking crazy and you want to blow up Israel and your neighbors and potentially Europe and maybe even the world. You guys keep going on about the 12th Imam and the coming apocalypse and the end of days and the Mahdi coming down. And no, forget it. You guys with your ball of fire and we're going to end the world to bring about the Islamic, the Muslim Messiah. No. So no nukes for you, okay? But you get everything else. Even nuclear power will give you the freaking fissile material. We'll give you the 3% enriched uranium. We'll do the enrichment and we'll hand it over to you. So we know you can't upgrade it to 20, 40, 60, 80, 90 as weapons grade. 90%. So you want nuclear reactors? We'll even give you a freaking nuclear reactor. Like, how much more again, you want my wife? Like, how much more can I give you, man? And we're barely negotiating, and these guys are striking and hitting commercial vessels. That's why Trump is like, he says, they're cuckoo. As he said, I've done negotiations my whole life. I've never seen this. I'm putting money and more money and more money in the pot, on the table, and I'm signing more favorable clauses and provisions for you in the contract. And I'm asking for two things. Straight, leave alone, and no nuclear weapons. Here, and you get the rest. You get the farm. I just want these two things. And what? You're slapping me in the face? You're tearing the whole thing up? The world can now see beyond a shadow of a doubt. There's nothing to discuss. These are primitive, medieval, Islamist savages. Honestly, the only other regime I can compare it to is the Taliban. But you can tell they don't give a damn about their people. They don't give a damn about the economy. They don't give a damn about schools, roads, hospitals, jobs, the well-being of their people. They couldn't care less. Because if you were any kind of an Iranian patriot with an IQ, in the positive, not in the negative, literally a zero IQ, that's enough. Zero IQ, an Iranian patriot. This is the deal. This is the deal. You take the deal. So what the president's going to do next, I don't fully know. But the illusion of diplomacy is over. The illusion that these people are reasonable, the leadership, is over. And now the question is, do we go back to an intense blockade and just try to squeeze them economically? Or does Trump go for a full blockade and resuming the war? That to me is now the question. Randy in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Randy, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Randy?
I've been listening to it forever, and you well-educated me on all this over the past with the deal leader and everything else. This regime, you cannot bargain with them. They've been a thorn in our rear ends since my junior year in high school in 1979. There's no bargaining with these people. I knew they were going to break this. I knew this deal was bad. Trump was too generous to him, and you can't negotiate with him. I think he should just finish the job and call it a day.
Randy, I got to ask you, did the president, in your view, make a mistake? And because we've lost time. And this is what U.S. intelligence has now revealed. Yeah, let me just give you one more bit of information, Randy, and then I want to get your take. That during the ceasefire, and it's been a long ceasefire, April 7th is when the war, in theory ended. Iran has managed to reconstitute. I'm giving you the official language used by the U.S. intelligence community. They've been able now to reconstitute over half of their missiles and over half of their drones that were blown up, during Operation Epic Fury. So they're not, back to full power, but they've gotten a lot of their missiles back, a lot of their drones back. They've been managed to dig out a lot of missiles and a lot of drones that were buried by our bombing and repair them. And so our U.S. intelligence says, no, they can, if they want to fight now, they've managed to, reconstitute enough that this thing could go on for weeks and weeks and weeks. Did we give them too much time? What say you, Randy?
Everything back up that we destroyed.
Randy, do you think the president now is just going to have to flatten them?
The president's going to just have to flatten them and put them to bed because there's no bargaining with these people.
Oh, I agree. No, Andy, you're dead on. You're absolutely dead on. Randy, as always, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. No, look, I think Trump now can go to NATO. That's for sure. He's there at the summit. Go to every NATO country and say, I didn't give peace a chance. I didn't give him the best terms you could possibly give. I didn't bend over backward. How many weeks we spent just to try to get this memorandum of understanding? I think he's going to have now a lot of diplomatic leeway and a lot of sympathy from people around the world when he says, you can't negotiate with these barbarians. There's only one option now. So either we're going to do it the easy way or we're going to do it the hard way. And I think Trump may have no choice but to do it the hard way. David in Brookline. Thanks for holding, David, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. And in the words of Brandon, what he might have said to you is, Merry belated 4th of July. Jeff, just a stream of... By the way, I'm sorry, but I want to give you a visual because I really am in the People's Republic. And it's ironic. Right before I came on, a guy walked by me. It's a beautiful, sunny, breezy summer morning. This guy didn't have one mask on. He had two masks on, hair disheveled. He looks like he very much looks like the fanatics that were in New York City screaming Mondani. But that, on a side note, there is an expression that probably goes back to before Clinton was dealing with Arafat. These people over there never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. And meaning, as you've been saying and the callers have been saying, you can't negotiate with people that don't look at the world the same way that we look at the world, which is in a reasonable, rational way. They are not interested in peace. They're interested in their vision of the world. These people, if you look at them, they're filled with rage. They're filled with violence. And, as you said, President Trump has given every opportunity to give peace a chance, as they say. And my other point I wanted to make is, again, it's conspiratorial, but isn't it ironic? The 4th of July celebration, notwithstanding the rainstorm in Washington, went over beautifully. That might have been the greatest entertainment display I've ever seen. That went great. People were feeling good. Even some of the demon rats were saying, that was quite a celebration. Then you have the Plattner thing. You go to the gas station. It's not low, but it's lower. You're hearing good reports on the economy. I mean, let's just say it. Things in the last couple weeks have been feeling better. It seemed calm over there, and then bingo, they attack the ships in the Straits of Hormuz. Is it not feasible or possible that they coordinate to some extent, or they pay attention to what the Democrats are doing and the politics in our country, and maybe even from the Chinese communists? And so basically, I just don't think that that peace is possible with these people. I thought it would wait until after the midterms, but I don't think that's going to be a possibility now.
Well, David, look, I think you're onto something. I think you've put your finger on it. As things stand right now, there's a batch of polls that have just come out, and it's shocked the Democrats. Shocked them. The Platner effect, how he's the poster child, but even more the Mamdani effect, the crazies that he helped get elected in these primaries, and they're going to win in November because they're very deep blue districts, has really frightened many Americans, many independents, even many conservative Democrats. And so suddenly everyone's saying Trump is going to shock everybody in the midterms. And as you put it, gas is not low, but clearly, look, I'm paying less. I'm paying, 60 cents, almost 70 cents less than what I was paying just a month ago, 3 weeks ago at the pump. I mean, I've noticed it. So again, I want it down to $2 a gallon. I'm paying basically $3.60, but it was $4.40, $4.50, even $4.60, just 3 weeks ago. So people are feeling it. It's getting better. Prices are coming down. Trump's approval is going up. And the Democrats have, they've jumped the shark by going full communist. And so it looked like they were going to get shellacked in the midterms and that Trump was going to hold the House and hold the Senate. I'm just going by the latest batch of polls. Well, guess what? Now, all of a sudden, Shazam, baby, out of the blue. I think this is what's so infuriated Trump. Just out of the blue, completely unprovoked, you start firing at commercial vessels for no reason? I mean, you're just, you want to blow up oil tankers and these big ships. And Trump is like, what? No, you want to blow up the ceasefire. You want to paralyze the Strait of Hormuz. You want to control the Strait of Hormuz. And because you want gas prices to go back up. Because you want to try to sink me in, as the midterms approach. So I think it's obvious now. The mullahs have made a calculation. Let's reignite this war with President Trump. Because we don't think he can beat us, A, and B, even if he does deliver devastating blows, he can't knock us out before the midterms. And so we're going to have a full-blown war, which means gas is going to be, what is it? Oil is going to be at 110 or 115 bucks a barrel. That's what they're calculating. We're going to have $5 a gallon here in the United States. Inflation raging again. And the Democrats going on about an unpopular war. And they think that's going to ride them back into winning power in November. So I think the mullahs are itching for a fight. And Trump realized, okay, they're not interested in negotiations. They don't want peace. They don't want a deal. What they want to do now is they want to muck up the Strait of Hormuz, block shipping again, get gas and oil high in order to sink me in November. Well, now I'm done. And I hope the military gives him, a 10-day plan or a 2-week plan or whatever it is. The ceasefire, according to President Trump, with Iran is over. Okay, my friends, we're going to continue to take your calls. Huge breaking news. But first, Wednesday, 7:20, you know what that means. Truth or troll. Take it away, Mike.
And now, America's favorite game show, where you get to decide on the Kuhner Report. This is Truth or Troll.
Today's entry for Truth or Troll comes from Sonny Hostin of The View, who went on an unhinged rant about the American flag and how she is scared of them. Let's take a listen.
I said this on this show many, many years ago, because this is my 10th year on the show, and I said there are times when I walk into a community and I see American flags all over the community, and I suddenly feel unsafe because there is a section of this country that has co-opted the American flag, and they equate being an American or an American flag with white supremacy, and that should never be the symbol of white supremacy, but they have weaponized.
Because the flag belongs to all of us.
It does belong to all of us.
So there it is. Sunny Austin doesn't feel safe when she walks anywhere where there's an American flag. Is she being real right now, or is she just doing the classic liberal virtue signaling?
You know, Bill in Sudbury apparently has a big crush on Sunny Austin. I'm just saying, that's like his dream girl, you know? Mike, honestly, with her, it's hard to tell because she's so stupid. Seriously, I've never seen someone with less between her ears than her. Ay, ay, ay. Her, Whoopi Goldberg, Anna Navarro, Joy Behar. Ay, 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 ay. I don't think there's 10 IQ points among the four of them put together. I think she's trolling. I think ultimately, if you were to press me, truth or troll, I think this is liberal virtue signaling. Do I believe that this woman, I know stupid as she is, you know, moonbat that she is, anti-American that she is, that if she goes, say, into a HOA or a neighborhood or a community and there are flags everywhere, does she suddenly think people in white hoods are going to come out and start burning crosses? No. That's right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. It was a very racist statement on her part because she's saying, you know, white people with flags, suddenly they become, you know, they're really KKK. You know, they're all a bunch of white supremacists with, you know, hoods that they wear in secret inside their homes. So, yeah, no, there's no question she's an anti-white racist. No question. But no, I don't believe her. I don't believe her. You know, I mean, you know, you're going to tell me that, you know, if she goes into an area where there's, you know, flags everywhere flying from people's homes, that all of a sudden she's shaking and, you know, she's all petrified and get me out of here. Turn the car around, get me out of here. No, absolutely not. So no, she's just playing to the audience. No, what scares me, Mike, is if you want to just play the cut again, it's the SEALs, the trained SEALs in the audience, Mike, that are clapping as she gives this claptrap, this nonsense. Do me a favor, Mike, play it again.
I said this on this show many, many years ago, because this is my 10th year on the show, and I said there are times when I walk into a community and I see American flags all over the community, and I suddenly feel unsafe because there is a section of this country that has co-opted the American flag, and they equate being an American or an American flag with white supremacy, and that should never be the symbol of white supremacy, but they have weaponized.
Because the flag belongs to all of us.
It does belong to all of us.
You know, by the way, Sandy's again 1,000% correct. I mean, it's such a racist statement that she said. If you're white and you have an American flag, bingo, you're white supremacist, you're KKK. But the trained SEALs, no, she's a liar. I guarantee you, when she sees the American flag, nothing. She goes into a community full of American flags, nothing. It doesn't bother her a single bit. You know why? Because she's been in this, she doesn't leave this country. As she said, I've been on The View for 10 years. And only in the United States, I'm serious, could somebody as ignorant and as stupid as this woman, with the most asinine opinions, that it's shocking that people will even listen to her, make tens and tens of millions of dollars. Because I'm telling you, it's, that American flag, nowhere else could she make that kind of cash. Not even close. So anyway, my opinion is she's clearly trolling. This flag does not scare her. It doesn't scare any liberal. And if they say it does, they're lying. Now, you can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhner. View host Sunny Austin says she feels unsafe when she sees the American flag in some communities. Is she for real? or doing a little liberal virtue signaling trolling? A, the truth. B, trolling. You can also vote on my X, on my handle, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhner. A, she means it. B, she's BSing, i.e. trolling. President Trump, in about maybe 2.5 hours ago now, it's breaking news. President Trump now has said that the ceasefire is over with Iran. The Memorandum of Understanding, the MOU, is finished. In the wake now of Iranian military activity, which is really just truly shocking because it is so stupid and so senseless and so needlessly, you want to talk about a needless self-inflicted wound. So what the Iranians have done, unprovoked, I really want to stress this, they began to attack commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, which clearly violates the ceasefire and the MOU. They targeted multiple commercial vessels using both drones and cruise missiles. President now responded, saying we have no choice, and launched a massive round of military strikes, the heaviest since the ceasefire of April 7th. They pounded nearly 100 targets, most of them along the coast of Iran, along the Strait of Hormuz. They hit over 60 boats, destroyed them. They hit dozens of air defense systems, command and control centers, really hit Iran hard. Iran then escalated, retaliating to our strikes. They have now launched a barrage. I mean, just apparently dozens and dozens of drones and missile strikes at Bahrain, at Kuwait, targeting our bases, but also targeting civilian areas. Kuwait and Bahrain now say this is an act of aggression. Their countries are now at war. They are under siege. President Trump now says the talks are over. We are dealing, his words, with scum, liars, cheaters, and people who he said are sick in the head. And he said there is no point in having negotiations with them. They lie. They're not serious. They were never negotiating in good faith. And so the ceasefire is now over. The only question now is, will Trump reimpose the blockade on all of Iran's ports and all of their commerce? He's already revoked their license to sell oil. So that didn't last very long. So they can no longer sell oil, which is going to cost them tens of billions of dollars. But now the question is, will he reimpose that very effective, crippling blockade? And will he now resume the war? Should he? Will he? What say you? 617-266-6868. Okay, Dan in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Thanks for taking the call, Jeff.
My pleasure.
You know, I think that the president has been absolutely masterful in far as how he's handled the situation. Very diplomatic, gave him the silver platter with everything on it, knowing in the background who they are, what they are, and what they would do. They thought that they were going to play out this midterm, the whole 9 yards, and in reality, he played them out by giving them enough of rope to hang themselves, because now he's going to NATO, he's going to get support, he's going to get support from all of these areas where they're bombing, and he's going to get the basic green light from the world because they basically blew it. And they thought they had him by the tail, but he actually had them by the tail.
Well, what they've given him, Dan, I'm just piggybacking off of what you're saying. They've now given him a huge opportunity, a massive green light, as you put it, to really hit him hard now. Now, again, look, I don't know. He may make a decision to send in ground troops. From everything I've read, from everything I've heard, He's very reluctant to do that, again, because of the American public. We don't like to see our troops get killed. I know this audience is willing to do what it takes to win. Are many in this audience. I understand that. But, the president's looking at polls, and the one red line that he says most Americans say about the war, we don't want to see mass casualties. We don't want to see hundreds dead. God forbid if we were to launch a serious land invasion. So he's told the military, I want to cripple them. I want to decapitate them. I want to punish them. I want to smash them. But I don't want to put boots on the ground, at least American boots on the ground. Now, that doesn't mean the Kurds won't do it. It doesn't mean we can't arm the internal opposition. And there's a lot of groups that are willing to fight against this regime and overthrow it. So, there's a lot of arrows in our quiver here that we can use. But I think that's the one thing I think the president is reluctant to do. But outside of that, look, if the president wanted to, well, let's just all be clear. I promise, Dan, I want to get back to you. He could take out their entire power grid easily. We're talking within 48 hours. He said this. He goes, look, I'm not trying to, it's not arrogance or hubris. I'm telling, he goes, I'm trying to talk to these insane leaders. The lights can go off in Iran and you won't be able to put them back on for months, which means your country is going to literally collapse. It's going to disintegrate. We could knock out every bridge. We could hit every desalination plant. You guys won't have water. You won't have electricity. You won't be able to move anything. Your country's going to collapse. Now, he doesn't want to do it because he's a humane man. He doesn't want to kill needless, innocent civilians. And he's sympathetic to the fact that the majority of Iranians are with us. They hate this regime. So he doesn't want to, people who are waving American flags and getting shot for it, he doesn't want to, throw them in the dark and cause starvation and dehydration and lack of water and food. So he's a humane man. But what he's trying to tell him is, look, guys, we can finish you in 48 hours. I mean, forget, I don't have to drop a nuclear bomb. All I got to do is tell my Air Force and Israel's Air Force, because they're the two best air forces in the world, okay, the gloves are off. Your power grid, gone. Your water plants, gone. Your bridges, gone. It's good night, Irene. You're done. What is wrong with you? You're playing with fire, and I could light the whole country up and burn it to the ground. So, I think you're going to see much more. If they do resume the bombing, it's going to be much more aggressive. What I mean is they're not just going to hit strictly military targets. He's going to make them feel it. And I think watch out for Tehran. The leadership where they live, where they work, their political administrative buildings, Iran is going to be shaken. Tehran is going to be shaken to its foundations. And I think a lot of these IRGC leaders that are responsible for a lot of this, they're dead. They're dead. Dan, hang on. I'm going to come right back to you.
Does this mean that talks with Iran will not resume?
I don't care. They can talk, but I think they're wasting their time. They're a bunch of lying guys. I do my whole life. That's all I do is deals. My whole life that's how I became president. I guess that's a deal too, right? But I made a lot of money. I had a lot of great success, tremendous success. Everything I did, I was successful. And I deal with these guys, and I say this is from a different school. They're liars. They're cheats. They're sick people.
Tell us how you really feel. That was President Trump at NATO just maybe 3 hours ago now, saying that the deal is over. The memorandum of understanding, the ceasefire is finished. And now he says there will be a next step. We assume he is going to reimpose the blockade. And the question now is, should he resume the war? And in particular, a massive, devastating bombing campaign. 7:51 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Let's go right back to Dan in New Hampshire. Dan said that the president has played this extremely well. He gave diplomacy a chance. He offered them an incredible deal on a silver platter. Everybody can now see who and what the Iranian regime is, how fanatical, how irrational, how unreasonable, frankly, how insane, how unhinged. And now the president will have full support from the entire world should he want to resume the war and a devastating bombing missile campaign. Dan, I want to ask you, one of the options now being presented to the president by the military is a complete decapitation of the entire political leadership. In other words, you hit their administrative buildings, their political buildings, you go after the leadership of the IRGC, you try to take out the son now of the Ayatollah, the new Ayatollah. I know he's wounded, but you finish him off. In other words, if you can't negotiate with these people, if there's not one sane person among the bunch, then just take them all out. Agree, disagree? Do you want to see Trump overthrow the leadership, or if not overthrow, bomb, destroy, and kill the leadership? What say you?
I think they've set them up for a can of whoop ass. And that's what they're going to get. And the worst thing that they're going to get is that the people of Iran knew what they had. They saw it. It was right in front of them. They had the golden ticket. And their regime, their leadership turned their backs on them, and they're going to get devoured by their own people. They know now that the regime doesn't care about them, and they've proven it. And you're going to see if we don't get them, the people of Iran will devour them.
Well, Dan, that's a fascinating point, because I hope the CIA is getting that message out on the internet to the people of Iran, because the mullahs now are trying to crack down on internet and people's access to internet. But the Iranian people need to know how much was offered to their country and for how little, in return. The Strait of Hormuz, they never had control ever. Before the war, ever. So you're not giving up anything. All you have to give up is your nuclear weapons program. That's it. That's it. And I think that people are going to look at this and say, and the IRGC turned this down? And they started attacking and bombing commercial vessels? Are these people mad? And I think you're right. I mean, if that doesn't push them to the streets, honestly, Dan, I think nothing at this point will. But if I'm an average Iranian, I would be livid at the Ayatollahs. If I got information that we have and how much President Trump was willing to put on the table and how much Iran was going to get economically, and not just economically, I mean, completely reintegrated into the region, into the world. It would be a normal country for the first time since 1979 with, swimming in hundreds of billions of dollars in cash. I mean, that's your economic future. And these guys just spit in the face of the United States after a deal like this. It's the equivalent of, no, I'm serious. Like, okay, you're going to get a mansion. Really? Yep. You're going to get a couple of luxury cars. Yep. All the furniture you want. Really? Yep. Millions of dollars in the bank. You're kidding. No. And I'm going to give you a yacht. And I'm going to give you a cottage. You want a cottage up in New Hampshire? You like that? Huh? You want a nice, okay, we'll even give you that. I just need one thing. What? I don't want a weapon of mass destruction. I don't want you to blow everybody up. That's all. That's it. That's all. And, you're starving and you find out this was offered and turned down. I'd be up in arms. I'd be like, let's take it to the streets. We got to overthrow these people. And maybe go back to President Trump after we overthrow them and say, can you please give us that offer again? Because we'll sign on the bottom line. So anyway, we'll see what happens. But Dan, that's a fascinating point. 617-266-6868 is the number. Bob in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff.
Hi, Bob.
I've got a crazy idea, and I don't know what you would think of it when I say this. You're talking about a funeral that's taken 6 days, and all these wackos are at this funeral.
Millions.
I would bomb the funeral.
Literally millions. Death to America, death to Trump, death to Israel, death to the Jews. Chant after chant. I just want you to know this, Bob. Death to Trump. And some of the people who are negotiating at the table, we have them on tape, are at the funeral chanting death to Trump. Those are the quote, I'm not kidding, those are the quote moderates. Those are the moderates. So it's not just the IRGC who are speaking when, death to Trump, Allah, Allah. And, the crowd, there's millions of them. They're going death to Trump, death to Trump, death. Some of the moderate negotiators, and I'm putting moderates in air quotes, are saying death to America, death to Trump, death to the Jews. And by the way, I think that's another reason why he says they're sick. Because I think they showed him the video. And they're saying, you see, that's the parliament speaker that's negotiating. This guy, Galibov. Here's him calling for your death. Right here. Here's the foreign minister, the other one, Aragachi, who's also part of the negotiating team. Here's him calling for your death. Mr. President, I don't think we can negotiate with these people. They're freaking psychopaths. And, they're playing to their crowd, to their people, to the fundamentalists. So I think Trump is like, nah, this is never going to work. This can't work. This never will work. I'm dealing with freaking savages. Anyway, I'm sorry, Bob, but just so that you understand, that's what Trump saw. Not just the attacks on the vessels in the Strait of Hormuz and the Iranians insisting it's theirs. As they were attacking, they said, we control the Strait of Hormuz. You can't go through it without our permission, which is a clear violation of the ceasefire. So, on every level, that's why you can see the anger in Trump's voice. Like, you guys lied to us from the beginning on everything. You were never serious. There was never going to be a deal. I'm sorry, Bob. Just wanted to give everybody the context. Please finish your point.
Feeling when I heard about this funeral, to bomb the funeral, because all these people are yelling and screaming to kill Trump and kill us and kill Israel. I mean, these people are no good. I don't care what anybody says. They're not innocent people to do what they're doing.
Well, they're going to get it now, Bob. I mean, unless I'm misreading Trump on this. Number one, the blockade is going to really hurt them. They were 2 to 3 weeks away from economic collapse when Trump turned this, he lifted the blockade. He had the screws. He really put the screws into him with that blockade. They were about 2 to 3 weeks away from a complete and utter, I'm talking economic just disintegration. That economy of theirs was in deep trouble. So when Trump lifted the blockade, that's why, again, he thought I'm dealing with, at least semi-rational people. Like, guys, the whole thing's going to implode. All I got to do is keep this for another 2-3 weeks, and your people are going to be starving. You're going to look at 3, 4, 500% inflation. Like, your economy is going to melt down. You're going to have mass hunger. Right? You're going to have mass protests on the streets because people are going to be starving to death. So I did you a favor. Obviously, you're going to negotiate in good faith. And no. That's what he's stunned at. So even if he just reimposes the blockade, Iran's economy is going to spiral down and it is going to utterly implode. And then the mullahs have a real problem on their hands. But if he resumes the bombing, he's going to decapitate that leadership. I think almost every single one of them chanting death to Trump, death to America, death to the Jews, they're living on borrowed time. I'll tell you this. The IRGC, the leadership, dead men walking. They're dead. They just don't know it yet. So, Bob, I think now they're going to really feel the fury of the United States. I think. Because it seems to me Trump's had it, and I don't blame him. I think the whole world, frankly, at this point has had it. Bob, thank you as always for your call. Michael in Pennsylvania. Thanks for holding, Michael, and welcome.
Jeff?
Michael.
Hi, how you doing? It's been a while. It's funny listening to your voice in real time. Last time I called you, I was in Kuwait. I just got back from a year tour.
Wow. Tour as in for work or tour as in for our country?
For our country. I'm a civil servant. I did the 30 years in the Air Force. And
God bless you, Michael. Yeah. Thank you for your service, and God bless you, and welcome back. Welcome home. Welcome back to the United States.
Thousands of podcasts. There's always so many I could listen to. So you're great.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
Michael, I want you to obviously say what you want to say, but before you do, I just need to ask you this. Since you've just been to Kuwait, and Kuwait now has been bombed, Kuwait was bombed again yesterday by Iran. They're the ones putting a lot of pressure on Trump, saying you've got to resume the bombing. You've got to take this leadership out. We will never have peace with them. They've attacked Kuwait repeatedly, acts of aggression. What is the lay of the land? What are the Kuwaitis saying? What's the atmosphere in Kuwait? And do they believe there can be any modus vivendi, any diplomatic way to deal with these, with the IRGC and this regime in Tehran? What's your sense? In other words, you just came back from Kuwait. What was your reading of what's happening on the ground there?
Yeah, I'm still serving. I'm a civil servant. I'm be going back in the next couple months, so I really can't say. That's all. And basically, what I'm asking is for America to remember our people over there. America only hears when people die.
Michael, you're saying that we have to be cautious of and remember Americans who are in that part of the world because they're vulnerable and they're exposed, correct?
They're very exposed, and they're getting hurt and injured, and America doesn't know about it unless someone died.
Michael, I don't want to get you in trouble, but do you think Trump should continue to give diplomacy a chance? In other words, if there's a ceasefire, we lost Michael. Okay. Maybe he didn't want to say more than that. Cause I don't want the poor guy to lose his job, but maybe he's trying to say, hey, if you can avoid dropping bombs, that would really help, because the more bombs you drop, the more bombs they'll drop. And there are Americans, as he put it, he's serving in Kuwait, but they're serving in Saudi Arabia, in Bahrain, in Oman, in the United Arab Emirates, in many of these places, and that's going to potentially put their lives on the line. And, they don't want to die, obviously. 617-266-6868. Ken in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Ken, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Ken.
Winning. I know some of your listeners think, what is he talking about, winning? Oh, let me explain. This is a sign of just how weak whatever leadership there is in Iran. So, let me first start by saying most people follow the news through their TV. When it comes to Iran, stop doing that. I follow YouTube, 2 channels. Excellent. You're going to find out what's going on. Secular Jihadists and Tusi TV. That's Tousi. Okay? What's really going on is they don't have a voice. They're splintered. There's the IRGC, and then there's the little mouse, the clerics. The clerics basically played their last card this weekend. So, how many died, February 28th, and they have his funeral on the weekend of July 4th. Yeah, they're making a statement, aren't they? And guess what? There's a third party of this three-ring circus. It's called Galibaf. So I don't know everything, but I'm putting two and two together, and I suspect that Galibaf was influenced heavily by the funeral this weekend, and he started talking out of the other side of his mouth, and that's what Trump is reacting to. So we can try to be armchair generals, but it's not going to do any good. We don't know nearly as much as Trump and all the intelligences know, but the things we do know, that there is a civil war brewing the last few weeks in Iran. Oh, there's reports that the Kurds are making some progress. And, you're calling about taking out all the IRGC, the tops. Well, guess what? That was starting the last couple of weeks. There was one or two top IRGC people just mysteriously taken off the road, kind of driving along, boom, and then the car goes wild. The press doesn't pick up on that. No, because you have to go to different sources. The news is good. Are we going to return to the bombing that we did in early March? No, we don't need to. We just need to keep the strait open. So you have the people who listened to what was going on this weekend in the IRGC, and they just started popping off. So was it irrational what happened the last couple of days and what they were shooting at? Oh, yeah, it was, because this was by design by Khamenei. Way back, even before January, and all that was going on, Khamenei wanted to make sure if he got taken out that there was a plan. And you know what his plan was? Disperse all the power. So literally, the IRGC has been acting without a head, deliberately by Khamenei and carried out by Larijani. And what happened to Larijani in March? Bye-bye, Larijani. They're a mess. Iran is a mess, falling apart, desperately trying to stay alive. And guess what? Who showed up suddenly at the funeral this weekend? You remember former President Ahmadinejad? Oh, he's alive.
Well, yeah, Ken, you're right. There are a lot of factions in the leadership. They don't like each other. They're scrambling for power. There's a big power struggle taking place. And I think it's in our interest now to really pit these groups against each other, to accentuate these divisions and this power struggle. And look, I think the IRGC basically made a decision. They made a decision. They believe they've won the war. I think this is a fatal miscalculation. They've now overplayed their hand, and they're staking the claim now to the Strait of Hormuz. That's what they did. By attacking those ships, they explicitly said, no ship goes through without our permission and our authorization. Well, that's not in the memorandum of understanding. And that's why Trump said, okay, well, now we're going to teach them a lesson. The Strait of Hormuz does not belong to the Ayatollahs or to the IRGC or to Iran. It belongs to the world. And so Trump's going to have to make a decision. Now, I think, just from everything I've read, everything I've heard, I think he's going to have no choice. I think he's going to reimpose the blockade. And I think he's going to try to forcibly reopen the strait. And if he just does that, forget resuming the bombing. If he just does that, he's going to break the back of the regime. So I think they've underestimated Trump. They think he has no stomach for any more conflict, that he's petrified of the midterms, and he's willing to put up with any indignity, any humiliation, because he's so desperate to just get any kind of a deal in order to get out and then hopefully try to fight the Democrats and win the midterms. I think they've completely misestimated him. They've made a big mistake. I think Trump now realizes there is no deal to be made. We never will have a deal with these people. It's not worth the paper it's written on. And I think now the president's going to make him pay with everything he's got. And I think the Ayatollahs now are going to realize you don't mess with the great Satan, as they put it. So you play with fire, you get burned. Well, now they've just played with fire. Anyway, just my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, is it time for us to resume the war? And is it time for us now to decapitate the entire leadership in Iran? Is it time now for bombing? Or should we continue to try to negotiate? The memorandum of understanding is now over. It is dead. President Trump now says there is no more ceasefire. And the question now is, what will he do next? What should he do next? Nikki in Bradford. Thanks for holding, Nikki, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Well, here goes my blood pressure again. Looks like the holiday's over. I don't know. I don't know what's more infuriating. Who are the bigger idiots? Those, quote, in charge of Iran, or those hags on The View? And I don't know which is a bigger crime. The hags on The View for 10 plus years, or however the heck long they've been on there, or the fact that the Iranians the leaders thought that they could pull a fast one on Trump and the United States. And I'd also like to know, what does England and all those that said, oh no, we don't want to get involved with this, what are they thinking now? Those bunch of cowards.
Well, Nikki, Trump really went scorched earth on not just Britain, on France, on Germany, on Italy, on Canada, on most of the NATO members, not all, but most, saying, you're free riders. You guys, we spent trillions of dollars over the years protecting you during the Cold War, after the Cold War, forgive me. And he said, when we needed you in Iran, none of you stepped up. In fact, Nikki, I don't know if you heard, it's breaking as well. There's a lot of breaking news this morning. Spain, during the entire war that we had, the fighting phase, the kinetic phase, as it's called, Operation Epic Fury, Spain wouldn't even allow us to use their airspace to, launch some of our bombing strikes. We're not even using bases in Spain, just to fly over Spain. Now, we've been protecting Spain for I don't know how many decades, and it's cost us I don't know how many billions of dollars, and yet they have a radical socialist government, and they even refused to let us use their airspace. Well, Trump has announced, I think maybe 2 hours ago, saying he's cutting off all trade between the United States and Spain. No trade whatsoever. Nothing. We're not going to take anything from Spain. We're not going to sell anything to Spain. So he's basically now telling NATO he's done. That he said, look, we didn't need your help, but it would have been nice had you volunteered, because most of your oil and liquefied natural gas, it comes through the Strait of Hormuz. None of the gas that we use goes through the Strait. It goes to you in Europe. It doesn't go to us. And to him, it was the general principle, and I so agree with him. When you needed us in World War I, we were there. In World War II, we were there. During the entire Cold War, we were there. Who kept the Soviets out? It was us. Who's kept the peace in Europe since the end of the Cold War? The last 35 years, it was us. You say you're afraid of Vladimir Putin? Who's given Ukraine hundreds of billions of dollars? Who armed them to the teeth? Us. And now, when we try to, save the world, or at least protect the world from these savages getting a nuclear bomb, you freeloaders, you deadbeats, you can't even chip in a couple of troops or a couple of fighter jets, or maybe, a ship here, like in Britain's case, because they still have a little bit of a navy. Maybe a destroyer here, or a ship here, or an aircraft carrier, a little something to contribute. So, as he put it, no, you guys are a bunch of leeches and parasites. You want us to do all the spending, all the heavy lifting, take all of the risks, protect you as you ride our back. Well, as he told them, those days are over. I'm done with you guys. And so we're going to see exactly what's going to happen. But, Nikki, you're completely right. So Trump said we're going to do what we have to do. But, Nikki, you can feel it. the NATO alliance is never going to be the same again. Our relationships with Europe and Canada are never going to be the same again. And our relationship with NATO is never going to be the same again because they've been unmasked. They've been exposed. You know, we've spent so much money and shed so much blood to protect them. And whenever we ask them to help us out a little bit, just a little bit, they're not willing to give us the shirt off their back. You know, and as Trump said, this is a very different Europe now. I mean, in fact, I want to play the cut. It's a very powerful cut. He says, you've been so inundated with migration, third world illegal immigration, and you guys have gone all in on this climate change. And your energy costs are so expensive. You've destroyed your middle class. He goes, if you guys aren't careful, there's going to be no Europe left. You're literally committing suicide. And you're spitting at us because we're the only ones willing to save the world. I've got to tell you, Nikki, I think the Europeans now have really screwed themselves. I don't think the American people are ever going to support what we used to do for them. And I think it's time for us to change our entire relationship with NATO. It's clearly a one-way street. And to me, that's not friendship. That to me is, they're users. And they've been using us forever. And I think it's time to end. Final word to you, Nikki. Agree, disagree?
I absolutely agree. It's like, you know, what you tell your kids, I'm sure. I've told my girls, my mother, my parents told us, you know, you get older, you realize who your real friends are. And sometimes it's just easier to stop the bleeding and cut it loose and focus on the ones that reciprocate. And, you know, you make the whole, you care about things, you make time for the things and the people that you care about. And clearly, but Trump cares more about the people in the United States, care more about the people of Iran than their own leadership does, and certainly all the cowards over in Europe acting as they usually do.
Oh, no, their leadership, you nailed it. They really are cowards. Self-serving, selfish cowards. That's what they are. Short-sighted, too, by the way, because they're going to lose a lot more than what they've gained. You take away American troops and American power. Okay, Dave in Revere. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
How are you?
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, Jeff, you know, when you deal with these people, most of them, Jeff, are all the ancestors of the Babylonians, which were total destruction of terrorists back in the biblical days. Jeff, they don't think straight. They don't care. And as I said a couple of weeks back, Jeff, they're snakes. You cannot deal with a rattlesnake, Jeff. It's because it's going to come back and bite you. And so what are we going to do, Jeff? Trump has every right to do what he's going to have to do because they don't want to know anything about anything. And when you get all these mosques over here, and who knows what they're preaching inside the mosque, and how many terrorists and sleeper cells are over here, Jeff. So it's going to happen one way or the other, Jeff. Jeff, we're dealing with in the book of Revelation, Jeff. It's going to go one way or the other. Hopefully it goes the other way so things will settle down for a while. But, Jeff, it's not going to change. You cannot deal with these people over there, Jeff.
Dave, I agree with you completely. And I think Trump feels burned. I think he feels he's invested a lot in this memorandum of understanding. Now, I understand he always said, hey, look, if we can't do it the easy way, i.e. through a diplomatic negotiation, we'll have to do it the hard way. And it's always better, and frankly easier to do it the easy way than the hard way. But look, it's obvious they never, ever intended, nobody did, not the so-called moderates, never mind the hardliners. They were never interested in any kind of a deal. They want the Strait of Hormuz. They want to get a nuclear weapon, and they think that they can string us along, help the Democrats win in November. That's their strategy, and then defeat Trump at the midterms, and then Trump will be so paralyzed and crippled by the Democrats, he can't do anything regarding Iran or the Strait or their nuclear program. So that's been their strategy the whole time. And I think now the only issue for Trump, the only issue now that matters is how do we bring Iran to heel? Or there is another option, which is just leave. Just literally just say, okay, I'm done. Bye. And, tell NATO, tell the Europeans, tell the Asians, tell everybody, because they rely on their oil from that part of the world. We don't. And say, you know what? It's your mess. You guys clean it up. So if you want to leave Iran in control, we can leave them in control. But I'm telling you, you're going to be at their mercy. So if you want them, with their boot on your economic jugular, if that's what you guys want, it's your funeral. It's not mine. So he either can just say, no, I'm done, we're leaving, or he can, at a minimum, resume the blockade, which would really paralyze the Iranian economy. And if he wants to, he's already cut off their oil. So the oil sanctions waiver that they had has now been rescinded. So now they can't sell any oil. So they've already lost, I don't know how many billions of dollars. So, and who knows? He may even just order a massive military bombing campaign. So we're going to see what's going to happen, Dave. Look, whatever he decides, I think the world will now back him. They're not going to give us any help, but I think they're going to say he clearly has a green light to do whatever he wants because the Iranians have been so intransigent and so unreasonable, honestly, so primitive. This is beyond primitive. He gave them the deal of the century. Honestly, they're mad. That's why he's saying they're sick. They're cuckoo, as he put it. Nobody walks away from a deal like this. So, again, you're talking to medieval savages. So forget it. It's like a caveman. You offer a caveman a beautiful home, computers, the internet, iPads, cars, whatever. Millions of dollars in the bank. All he wants is that club and he wants to smash you in the head. That's all he knows. That's what he is. So Trump, and I think Trump also now can sell it to the Iranian people. I think everybody's overlooking that. Not just that the American people will say, well, they're really unreasonable, or the Europeans or the Asians or the world. I think the Iranian people now, to them, all he's got to do now is say, look, here is what we agreed to with the MOU. Here is what I was going to give you, the whole country, you. This is what you were all going to benefit from. I gave you everything. And your guys shot at ships and vessels. Your guys violated the ceasefire and are itching to go back to war. Don't look at me. Look at the IRGC. Look at your regime. They're the only ones now standing in the way between you and a future you couldn't even have imagined even a month ago or whatever, 3 months ago. He's giving them the modern world. He's giving them $500 billion. He's giving them full reintegration into the Middle East, into the world economy. He's going to make them a normal, prosperous country. He's giving their children and grandchildren a future these people could never imagine on a silver platter. And these savages, Allah Akbar, death to America, death to Trump. Okay? After a while, I don't know what to tell you. Look, let me even go even further, okay? God is my witness. I don't care. I don't like any of these countries in the Middle East. You know my feelings on them. I don't like Qatar. I don't like all these Shia law, these Sharia law, Muslim Islamist states. I don't like any of them. Okay. I don't like Turkey. I don't like Qatar. I don't like the UAE. I don't like Saudi Arabia. I don't like Pakistan. I don't like any of them. I don't like that head chopper that runs Syria. I don't like any of them. They would all take the deal. I'm telling you, they would all take the deal because they're a level above these savages. There's only 2 countries in the entire world that would not take this deal. The Taliban in Afghanistan, because they're that primitive, and these savages in Tehran. That's it. Every other country in the world, they would take the deal. So what I'm trying to say is, even a mass murderer, a serial killer, Tim in South Dennis. Thanks for holding, Tim, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff, my friend. As always, I love you in a non-sexual manner.
Thank you, Tim. Buddy, what do you make of Trump's obvious frustration now? He's had it. He's hit the boiling point. The ceasefire, the MOU is over. What do you think he's going to do? What do you think he should do?
Well, my first thought was when I heard this was, who is advising the president? And then I came to the realization the problem is in the United States, in the Western world, but particularly here, we seem to feel every time we end up in a war with somebody, we are up against a Western enemy, one who believes in things like the Geneva and Hague Conventions, the rules of war, all that kind of stuff. Well, we haven't fought an enemy like that since the Germans in World War II. I mean, they were scumbags, yeah, but for the most part, at least against the Western allies, they followed the rules of the so-called rules of war, but from the Imperial Japanese forward, Korea, Vietnam, the global war on terror, we've been up against enemies who don't care about any of that stuff. As a matter of fact, in the Muslim world, these people are so fanatical, they will tell you, we would much rather die, because dying for Allah is oh so great. So, I mean, how can you even negotiate with something like that? I think what Trump has got to do, I mean, like I've said before, I don't like wars, but if you decide to go that route, you got to commit. I think he should go in with the blockade, the bombing, and I would offer no timelines on anything. I think they do that, too, to placate the anti-West, anti-U.S. media, which, of course, is on Iran's side and hates our country. And plus, they know that is one thing, these mullahs don't care about collateral damage, but they will militarize targets like schools, mosques, and all, because they become legitimate targets under international law. But then if we hit them or Israel does, like, look, they're committing genocide, they're killing innocent Muslims, and the Western media runs with it and, you know, denounces them. I'd say to hell with it. Trump should just tell them, here's what we're up against. I mean, we've fought Muslim enemies in the past, you know, in 1803, in the Philippines at the turn of the 20th century. That campaign against the Muslim fanatics in Mindanao was brutal. So brutal, we developed a whole weapon system because of it. So, I mean, unfortunately, you know, they might think it's a situation where we can all, you know, trade a few blows, sit down and sing Kumbaya, but fortunately, those people are never going to agree to it. I think Trump's either got to go all in till either they're so battered they come begging him or they're all gone.
Tim,
I mean, that's what
Tim, what I want to do is I want to play a cut and I want to get your reaction because I think it really sums up perfectly what you're saying. So Trump is now at the NATO summit in Turkey, and he's going to say, I don't like these people, meaning the Iranians. And then he says, I like all of these leaders, meaning these European leaders. And he's been chastising them. In fact, he's been criticizing them, saying, look, they're not treating us fairly. It's never reciprocal. It's always one way. But he says, listen, I'm going to call it the way it is. When they sign a deal, they adhere to the deal, meaning Europeans and Canadians, Westerners. And even look, he goes, I know why they don't want to help us. It's rational. I mean, I don't like it. I don't think it's fair, but he's saying it's rational. Why? They want to mooch off of us, right? They don't want to spend more on defense and on military. They want to spend more on welfare and social programs and other things. So, yeah, they're riding our back because they think it's in their interest. So I may not like them. I may think it's, you know, not you know, it's insulting to us and unfair to us. But, you know, they're sane, rational people. What I'm dealing with these Iranians, or as you would put it, Tim, they're Western, meaning sane and rational. Whatever you think about them, they go, well, yeah, okay, they're being unfair and they're being really selfish, but I get it. It's got self-interest for them. It's sane. It's rational. These people, he goes, I've never negotiated with anything like this in my life. Roll cut 6B, Mike.
I don't like these people. You know that? I like him. I like the leaders. I think all of these leaders.
And
I think they didn't treat the United States fairly for many years, but that's okay. But they're sane, rational, good people. Most of them. I don't like a couple of them, to be honest.
So he's saying, I don't like some of these European leaders, but look, I don't care what you say. They're sane, rational people. He's pointing around, Maloney, Macron, Merz, the Chancellor of Germany, the new Prime Minister of England. Like, okay. But those savages, the Ayatollahs, as he put it, cuckoo, sick. Tim, final word to you.
Well, I totally agree, and I think he's right to cut off Spain, and he should tell them. And from what I understand now, a country like Denmark, I mean, I know the rest of Western Europe surrendered to the Muslim horde, but from what I've been seeing recently, Denmark, they're finally waking up and decide we don't want these people here anymore. We don't want parallel societies and no-go zones. When the EU High Court went to them and complained about it being racist, they basically told them your objection is noted, blank off.
Yeah, blank off. No, I'm with you. Tim, thank you very much for that call. Linda in Medford, and that should be the answer when it comes to Muslim migration and what they're doing to Europe. And Trump warned them again, by the way. He goes, this climate change agenda you guys are pushing, it's going to destroy your economy. And immigration, Muslim immigration, you won't have a civilization left. Your answer to the EU should be blank off. There will be no France, no Italy, no Germany, no Spain, no England, there won't be Europe if you guys continue on this path. He goes, okay, I'm just telling you, it's up to you. I'm not the president of Europe. I'm the president of the United States. But you guys are committing suicide. I want you to know that. Linda in Medford. Thanks for holding, Linda, and welcome.
As far as NATO goes, I agree with all the above. I think for decades it's been nothing but a money pit so that countries don't have to pay for their own military, and they don't contribute anything when there's conflict. The other place I'd like to get rid of as well is the UN. I think the UN is just another big money pit. I understand the cafeteria there has filet mignon and all sorts of great foods. The Afghanistan joined the UN, but Afghanistan will not allow any women. There'll be no women from Afghanistan. If Netanyahu or any Jew gets up to speak, they get up and leave. So what's the point of the UN? Aren't those the problems it's supposed to be solving? I say close it down and turn it in for housing for the homeless veterans.
Linda, I got to tell you, I so agree with you. I know people listening are saying, "Oh, that may be a bit extreme." No, I think the United Nations is a useless institution. It is dominated by third world dictatorships. You mentioned how many of them are Islamic and deeply anti-Semitic and deeply anti-American. And the point is, okay, at least you can say, well, it's a debating society. Okay, let's just, okay, well, at least we get our points of view expressed and heard. But you're right. When America speaks, they walk out. When Israel speaks, they walk out. When Western leaders, he's not in power now, but he was in power for many years, Viktor Orban from Hungary. When the Hungarians got up to speak and to denounce Muslim migration into Europe, they just all got up and left. So the point is, well, if you're all going to walk up and leave, then you're not even a debating society. We're not even here to, you can't even say we're here to exchange views and I listen to your point of view, you listen to my point of view. So if that's the case, either blow up the building, sell it, or house veterans and kick the UN. I don't know, if the Europeans love it so much, give it to the Europeans. Whatever, give it to the Middle East, give it to whoever. I think we should pull out of the UN. I think we should pull out of NATO. I think they're a bunch of ingrates. I think it's been a one-way street with these people now for a very long time. And Trump is right. We have dumped trillions, not billions, trillions of dollars to protect the Europeans. And, we didn't ask for much, but we get into a war with Iran, and what do? They literally stab us in the back. Spain, unforgivable. What that socialist government did. They wouldn't forget using bases that we pay for on their soil. Okay? As Trump said, the Italians wouldn't let us use the bases that we pay for. The Germans wouldn't let us use the bases that we pay for. The Spaniards were the worst. They wouldn't even let us use their airspace. Forget the air bases. They wouldn't even let us fly over Spain. But if they ever get attacked, American boys have to fight for Madrid and Barcelona? I don't think so. No, you've been screwing us, ripping us off, taking advantage of us for decades. This is not friendship. This is abuse. These are a bunch of leeches and parasites. And like what Trump said yesterday about Denmark, I got the cut, I'll play it. I thought it was beautiful what he said. What the hell has Denmark ever done for Greenland? Greenland is just sitting there. They don't spend a penny. The Russians and the Chinese are circling it like a bunch of sharks. They're making a play for the North Atlantic. And the Europeans won't lift a finger. We say, we'll take it over, and we'll run it, we'll pay for it, and it'll be used to protect us and all of Europe. And we're the bad guys? Blank off. Enough is enough. Linda, thank you so much for that call. Okay, Dr. Grace putting liberals in their place. We've got her. Grace Voto, full disclosure. I married down. Or sorry, she married down. Forgive me. I married up. She married down. So I'm happy that she married me because frankly, I don't know what she sees in me, but she saw something. So I married up. She married down. Because many of you keep saying, Jeff, you say she married, you married up. Well, why don't you say the truth? She married down. I'm like, okay, she married down. And I thank her every day for it. Grace, how are you?
Jeff, for a moment I thought I was on the wrong show. Did I marry up? Did I marry down? I got confused.
Grace, I gotta say, you called it. You said that memorandum of understanding, that so-called ceasefire, wasn't worth the paper it was written on. The Iranians would eventually stab us in the back. They were going to break this thing. There wasn't a question of if, it was a question of when. I gotta say, I thought the Ayatollahs would at least milk a few more billions of dollars out of this before they, just started shooting up commercial vessels and oil tankers. But no, they're so primitive, they won't even take the money. So they've already broken the ceasefire. Trump now, it's breaking as I speak to you, now says that we are going to hit him again tonight, and we're going to hit him very hard. He says you're going to see a massive bombing campaign begin tonight. So I don't know if the war's back on, but clearly the ceasefire is over. What say you?
Well, Jeff, I want to begin with a small personal story. I had lunch yesterday with a dear friend of mine who is from Iran, and she was white as a ghost. And when I asked her what her thoughts are, she said the regime now in Iran is stronger than ever. The IRGC is stronger than ever. When she calls her family members there, they're afraid to say anything on the phone. The only thing she asks is, are you okay? And they say yes or no. The people there cannot afford basic necessities. The food of everything is sky high. And when I hugged her and said, okay, have a great day at the end, it was nice to see you, she said, within our lifetime, I'm not going to see the IRGC leave Iran. That's how gloomy she was. And she said that it's been so difficult to hear the stories of how they have cut down the cream of their youth. The killings have been beyond even what we know here in the United States. So we have to start by having a very stark analysis. They're not crazy in the sense that they're insane. They have very clear strategic goals. And this war has allowed them to achieve those goals. And unless we recognize that, we don't know how to deal with them. What are their goals, Jeff? They have said, and I think we just have to start listening to what they say. The president has to realize he's not dealing with another businessman here. This is not a business transaction. He's very good at making a deal if two parties have a rational goal that they both want to achieve to make money. He's very good at that. But he seems to get lost when it comes to understanding that as the President of the United States, he's not there to make a business deal. He's there to represent national interests, and the other party on the other side is representing a national interest. Doesn't matter if they like each other or don't like each other. It's about national interests. So you got to start at the beginning here. What did Iran say? Iran said they're not giving up their nuclear program. So they've told us that they're not giving it up. They've also said they don't want Israel there in the Middle East. They want death to Israel. They've said that. So those are their two large strategic goals. What did they say after that? Once they realized that they control the Strait of Hormuz, they've told us, and now we're not letting go. Because guess what? This war has elevated them. They went from a regional player to now being able to control my grocery price and your grocery price. That's intoxicating for them. So why should they give that up? So we have to understand that this war, from the United States point of view, has been a disaster. And from the point of view of the IRGC, has been a success for them because they are making progress in those three goals. They have told the world they're not giving up their nuclear weapon. And now we went to war with them, and we haven't been able to relinquish their program from them, even though, setting it back. They've told the world they don't want peace, and they're not giving us peace. And they've told the world, guess what now, guys? Now we can control the Strait of Hormuz. So they've only gotten stronger. And the president has to make a decision here, and there's no getting around this decision. And both options are terrible. Either he commits to a massive loss of American life. Does he want American boys to die? I would literally go in there and say, listen, Mr. President, both options are very bad. So just choose one. Either you go in there with American troops, there's going to be a lot of dead young men and women coming back home. Do you want that, yes or no? If you're okay with that, we got to retake the Strait of Hormuz, period. You can come home after that and say that, you know what, you set the regime back, and now the Strait of Hormuz is free again. Or you say, I've done enough, and we just go home. That's it. Both of these options are bad. They're very, very bad. And at this point, you have no choice. You have to choose one. And to not choose one is going to put you into this path right now of appearing to be completely incompetent in the eyes of the whole world.
Let me ask you, there is a third option, which is reimpose the blockade, which would economically cripple Iran, then launch a massive bombing campaign and missile strikes with Israel in order to pound the Iranians into submission, hit their oil infrastructure, hit their bridges, take out some of their power grids, further decapitate the regime, kill almost all of the top IRGC leaders. In other words, you don't need to commit to massive ground troops and body bags coming back. You can keep the troops out, or maybe you can arm some of the opposition groups. But in other words, pound them from the air, pound them from this from our battleships and from with the use of our Tomahawk missiles in combination with Israel and hit them so hard that this time they have to relinquish control over the Strait of Hormuz. What say you?
I think again, Jeff, this is the mistake that is being made. This is a part of the world that likes war. And we don't like war. We're a pragmatic people that want to get on with the business of freedom and people making money and leading their lives individually. They love war. You go down this road, and that's going to suck us into years of war with them. So it's obvious that the president wants some kind of a relatively short-term solution. And there's only two of the short-term solutions. At this point, I know it's tough medicine, but I would say you have to decide this. Do you want another American soldier to die, yes or no? If the answer is no, you've got to accept this. You lost. You lost. So just get out. Get out and save the rest of your presidency. I know it's tough medicine, Jeff, but believe it or not, you're the one that taught me all of this. Because sometimes when I was making a business decision and I was getting in quicksand, you told me over and over again, Grace, sometimes the hardest decision in the world is to cut your losses. And I learned that lesson. And I see that very clearly now. There's a lot, this is a disaster. Okay? So you have to face it. Sometimes we fail in life. He failed in this. He should never have gone in. He made a huge mistake. I think it's apparent to almost everybody that this is a disaster.
Interesting. Okay, Dr. Grace, as always, I appreciate your candor and your honesty. Nick in Weymouth. Thanks for holding, Nick, and welcome. Nick, do we have you? All right, did we lose Nick? Okay, who do you want me to go to next, Mike? Andrea in Weymouth. Thanks for holding, Andrea, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Hi. I want to expand upon something that Grace said. By the way, she's very smart, and I agree with much of what she said this morning, and I usually do. But she said something this morning that's really important, and that is the Iranians told us what they want to do, and we need to listen. So here's my message. I'm Jewish, I'm a Zionist, I'm a grandmother. When Benjamin Netanyahu says he will do what is necessary to keep his people and his country safe, that's what he needs to do. Not listen to anybody else around the world, because the Iranians have told us what they want to do. They want Israel wiped off the map. So I'm tired of hearing this criticism about Benjamin Netanyahu, like he should play nice and just sit around and not go in and blow up those tunnels and fill them with cement, and not go and kill the terrorists and people who were responsible for killing over 1,200 innocent people on October 7th. I want everybody to understand that. Grace said it, and I had to get it off my chest.
Andrea, if you were advising President Trump right now, what would you advise him to do?
I'd have been advising him before he started, because I would have basically said, you're either going to do it or not. I'm a mother, okay, of a son. I'm a grandmother of grandchildren. I hate the idea of war. I came of age during the Vietnam War. I was a mid to late teen during that time. I had friends go in who came out all messed up. I had pen pals who stopped writing because they died. I don't like it. I don't think most women particularly like war. But I also believe that the United States, being the superpower that it still is, should go in and damn wipe them off the face of the planet. And I know there are people who are going to die. Hey, people are already telling, people like me that I'm committing genocide because I'm a Zionist. Good for them. I can take it. I have to speak for the younger people who have jobs and different connections in life, who have to stay under the radar a little bit to be safe. But gosh darn, I'm retired. If people don't talk to me, and they have stopped, I have people who I think shy away from me because I've been very vocal about this on social media, as well as just in people I talk to. So be it. I can take it. You know, I'm happy doing my own thing in my own home. So I would have gone in the first time and done it, and I don't think I would have even needed to use a lot of American troops, because I would have done what the United States should do. When you're up against a threat, sometimes you just have to take care of it, and that's it. I mean, that's like the pragmatic part of it.
Andrea, thank you very much for that call. And I think that's the decision now Trump's going to have to make very, very soon. He says that we're going to hit Iran very hard tonight. And that's going to be, again, a massive escalation. And then the question is, what does he do after that? I think he's going to, as I said, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I think he's going to reimpose that blockade, which means the whole thing is now over. I mean, there is no ceasefire, no memorandum of understanding. And he's going to really put the screws into the Iranian economy. And then the question is, look, I know for a fact they've offered him several different military options to resume all-out war. And Trump doesn't want to bring in troops on the ground. Grace says you need to, if you really want to do this properly and topple the regime, you're going to have to send in troops. Trump doesn't want to send in troops or minimize the use of troops. But he's going to hit him. It's going to be missiles and bombs. I think that as heavy, if not heavier, than during Operation Epic Fury. And I think they're going to expand that target list. I think you're going to see a lot of infrastructure, civilian electric infrastructure is going to get wiped out. I think he's now going to tell the leadership, you're going to feel that pain. And the IRGC, I think he's going to try to surgically remove them. Decapitate this regime once and for all. I mean, really break them. I know that's what they've offered. That's what they've put on the table. That's a plan that they have offered to him. And they say we need 14 days. They say 14 days and let's unleash the dogs of war. And they believe they can alter the facts on the ground. So we shall see. I think he's also got to bring in the Navy, our Navy, and forcibly militarily reopen the strait. I think he's got to do he's got to do several things. But that will be a massive escalation. And is the president willing to do it? We shall see. Andrea, thank you so much for that call. Brian in Abington, thanks for holding, Brian, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff.
Hi, Brian.
The thing is, there's an actual third option. My view is talk to Netanyahu, have the Mossad assassinate everyone. Okay, I know it's bloody, and I know it's not something that we want to do, but bombing them and stuff like that, they're not going to stop. They're insane. It doesn't matter what you do to them. So I say take them all out. Okay, just because I know the Mossad are probably entrenched in the IDC. So the thing is that that's my view. Forget about regular war. Okay, we have to go guerrilla. Okay, and just assassinate all of them because they are not going to stop. They are not.
Well, Brian, look, I think what we have now is clarity. I mean, we have a very clear answer to a very clear question. Do they want a peace deal? No. Do they want a ceasefire? No. Do they want to adhere to the memorandum of understanding? No. Can you give them, all the economic and diplomatic incentives in the world to get a kind of a deal? No. So, Brian, I think you're right. They're going to have to they're going to have to choose one of these options. And we'll see. Mossad is, in terms of assassinating leaders, like Islamist leaders or terrorist leaders, there's nobody better than Mossad. Okay, just very, very quick. The lines are jammed. But this is the extent of Trump's disgust with NATO. And I've never seen him like this. I don't blame him. And I think he sums up the feelings of many, many people now in the United States. So, in particular, regarding their lack of contribution their lack of effort, their lack of support during this entire war, ceasefire, confrontation, whatever you want to call it now, with Iran. Listen now to the president saying, I'm so disappointed in our quote-unquote NATO allies, unquote. I didn't even want to come to the NATO summit. I came because Erdogan, the strongman of Turkey, invited me. He's helped us out when we needed him with diplomacy or whatever in the Middle East. And he said, please, as a favor, could you come? It's going to be bad for me as the leader of Turkey. We're hosting the NATO summit. If you don't come to if you don't come to Ankara, Turkey, if you stay in the United States. So listen now to the president saying, I came as a favor to the leader of Turkey, not because I really want to be here. That's how disgusted I am with the way the other NATO allies have treated us. Roll cut 1, Mike.
And are you satisfied with the progress that NATO allies have made?
Well, we're going to see. I was very disappointed with NATO. And frankly, if it weren't held in Turkey, where my friend happens to be a very strong leader, a very strong person, it's possible that I wouldn't have attended. I felt I had to attend because of the fact that, I know he's gone all out. It was a big thing to have NATO come to Turkey or any place else. It's a big thing. But we weren't treated well because we did something in Iran. We don't need anybody's help. I didn't even want their help. But before I asked, they said they wouldn't be there.
So, in other words, they let it be known. And really, just to be precise, he's really singling out France, Germany, Italy, and Britain. There are other countries, Denmark, Norway, Belgium. There's more. I get it. And Spain. He's singling out these 5. Okay, if you want to call them the big 5. Britain, Germany, France, Italy, and Spain. The governments. Saying, we didn't even go to war. We didn't even ask them. And they already told us before we even asked them. Don't count on us. Listen now to Trump saying, I felt burned, the United States was burned, and now we feel used. In some ways, betrayed. Because NATO has shown themselves to be a bunch of ingrates. Roll cut 1A, Mike.
We've invested trillions of dollars in NATO. Why? To protect European countries and others, Canada, etc., but to protect people, countries from, generally speaking, it used to be the Soviet Union, now it's Russia. And I say that's fine, but you would think that they'd be very willing to do something to help us, and they really weren't.
Bingo. What, they weren't? They wanted no part of it. And chirping from the sidelines. And criticizing and nitpicking and undermining. Let me just play one more. He said, look, ultimately, this was a kind of a test. When we needed a little bit of help, you weren't there for us. Every time you've needed us, every single time, for more than 100 years, we've been there for you. Roll cut 1B, Mike.
In the case of the United Kingdom, the Prime Minister, I guess he's no longer there, maybe because of this. It was a very unpopular thing he did. He said, no, we'll help after the war is over. I said, I don't need that kind of help. We didn't need any help at all. And in a way, I was testing people. I was testing to see whether or not they'd be there, because I've long said that we helped them, but I'm not sure that they'd be there for us. And Italy turned us down, and Germany turned us down, and France turned us down. And it's okay. But, why are we spending hundreds of billions of dollars and they're not there for us? We've always been there for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you all the way. Now, let me just play one more. He's talking about, in particular, they're very worried about Russia. Okay, the war between Russia and Ukraine, and they keep going on. He says, every time I meet him, Putin's going to invade Eastern Europe. Putin's going to invade, France, Italy, Germany. So, okay, we keep sending money. We keep pledging to protect Europe. We've given hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine because all of you keep telling me, oh, the Russians are coming. The Russians are coming. But you weren't there for us. And then I come here, or I go to Europe, and I look at the continent, and I see what your energy policies are doing. Your green communism, your Green New Deals, which is destroying your middle and working class. Your energy costs are astronomical. You guys are insane. You won't use fossil fuels. So you're basically bankrupting and hollowing out your own economies. And then you're overrun with Muslim migrants. What are we protecting? He's actually telling them to their face. You're a civilization that's dying and in some ways committing suicide. And you want us to continue to protect you? Roll cut 2A, Mike.
And when they wouldn't go along with it, and with all the money we spend to help them with Russia, and we don't have to spend any money, we could remove all of our soldiers out of Europe. Because as you probably noticed, Europe's a very different place than it was 20 years ago. A lot different, much different. It's a much different, and they better be careful with immigration and energy. If they're not careful with those two things, you're not going to have a Europe anymore. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
He told them right to their face. It was blunt, it was honest, and to me it was extremely powerful. Either you turn things around, and I mean now, or European civilization is finished. And after everything we've done for you, you couldn't even send one bullet, one plane, one ship, one boat, one minesweeper. Nothing. Honestly, shame on you. To Canada and the Europeans, shame on you. Dan in Dartmouth. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Dan, how are you? I'm good, very good.
The light of liberty, the voice of reason. Thank you, Jeff, for being the bulldozer of Boston.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you, Dan.
Hey, Jeff. So here's where I think it stands. Trump has played this brilliantly because he's exposed them. He's exposed them for having their sole purpose in life to create Armageddon, nuclear Armageddon. He's basically given them the golden goose and served it up on a silver platter. They could have been just in a tremendous economic recovery for the next 20, 30, 40 years plus. And they have decided they want Armageddon. They want a nuclear program more than all of the other things we can give them. So through that process, I think we only have now one choice, and that is either, well, we could go home, but this regime has got to be taken out. So I'm calling for Liberation Day in Iran, and that is we got to bomb the living daylights out of them. Take out their bridges so that there's nothing flowing in and out of the country. And then we have to get all of those Middle East countries that have been attacked by Iran, that are our so-called friends in the area. And they all need to be involved, including Israel. And this is the Abraham Accords in action to go in there and take out that regime. So it can't just be the United States. Matter of fact, I don't think we have to have any boots on the ground at all. I think all the boots on the ground is everybody in that area, the Middle East, to go ahead and take out that regime completely and allow the people of Iran to have a government that is not a theocracy. And my feeling is that this is the time to do it because he's exposed them for who they are, and their sole purpose in life is for Armageddon and the coming of the third Imam. So I believe that it's time for Liberation Day in Iran, and I think we've got to do it collaboratively. And so, Time is now.
Well, Dan, just to piggyback off of what you're saying, the Saudis, the Kuwaitis, United Arab Emirates, Rick in Belmont. Thanks for holding, Rick, and welcome. Rick? Have we lost Rick? Are you there, Rick? All right, Mike, let's go to someone else. Maybe we can reconnect with Rick. We're still on Rick? Try Rick again. Rick, are you there? Rick in Belmont.
Yes. Can you hear me, Jeff?
Yes, Rick. Finally, you got on through. Okay. Yes, I hear you loud and clear. Go ahead, Rick.
All right. This war is an absolute disaster. America first. That's what he promised us. That's what we voted for. We didn't vote for endless wars, trillions of dollars wasted in the Middle East, gas prices going up. This thing is crazy, and I can't believe all these conservative people calling up rah this war. It's nuts. It's no benefit to us. It's crazy.
Well, Rick, let me ask you this. At this point, I know I guess you opposed it from the beginning, right, Rick?
Well, we made Iran 100 times stronger than they were.
Rick, no, I hear you, Rick. A lot of people feel that the war initially was a mistake. I mean, my wife feels it. I was a skeptic. I was very worried it was going to lead to a quagmire. But we are where we are right now. And so my question to you, today, whatever, July 8th or whatever it is, if I could have you be the president's consigliere for today, and I've got him on the phone, and he says, okay, Rick, this is where we are now. Forget 3 months ago, 4 months ago. What do we do? What should I do? What would you recommend that he do? What would be your advice?
Well, he's in a real pickle because he can't stand up to Israel. For whatever reason, he cannot say no to them. So there's our problem, And everybody knows it. Everybody says it. Everybody knows it, but nobody will say it publicly.
Should he just come home, declare victory, and just come home and just that's it? In other words, I understand, he's got that tight relationship with Bibi. But what do you think he should do at this moment right now?
Yeah, he's got to withdraw. I mean, they had an agreement, right? Didn't they have an agreement like a week ago?
Well, that agreement, that's in the toilet right now, Rick.
Right, because Israel wouldn't stop bombing Lebanon. That was part of the agreement that they agreed to.
So you're saying, essentially, as far as you're concerned, get out, come on home, and just leave the Strait of Hormuz and everything else to the region, to the countries in the region, and let them clean up the mess. We've got enough problems here. Let's focus at home, correct?
Well, yeah, but the problem is Iran is very strong now, and they got a lot of missiles. So, believe me, they're not going to be taking a lot of crap from anyone.
So, Rick, your feeling is that the war has made Iran stronger and more powerful, correct?
Absolutely.
Interesting. Rick, thank you very much for that call. Kenny in Lowell, thanks for holding, Kenny, and welcome.
Jeff, first, I want to start by thanking you for the debate.
Kenny, hold on, Kenny. You sound like a robot. I mean, Jeff, first, I want to thank. So we're going to try to reconnect. So you sound like an actual human being, Kenny. All right. Did we get it fixed, Mike? Kenny, let's try one more time, my friend. We don't want Android Kenny. We want human Kenny.
Hello?
Oh, you sound like a human being again. All right, go ahead, Kenny.
Jeff, I want to start off by thanking you for the debate with your wife. It's fascinating. But I have to say, I disagree with her 100%. And all your callers have touched on all my points, so I'll try to be quick. But Grace talks with such finality and emotion about this issue with Trump. But the previous callers talking about the moves on the ground and the IRGC being stronger, that's all hearsay from one person, her friend. The people are against the IRGC. We know that. They're under slavery. Other issues like the previous callers all touched on, I think this had to be done. If you go back to the beginning, I'm talking about America first all the way. It had to be done for the future of America to stop being bullied and threatened. And this is not just going to affect the relationship with Iran, but our relationship with China and our future. That's the main goal. We have to take control of this world, peace through strength. And Grace talks about tough medicine. Nothing ever came easy, Jeff. This is tough medicine for everybody.
Kenny, what would I don't mean to rush you, Kenny, but we've got about a minute left. What would you do now? You're Secretary of War. You're with Trump around the table. He says, Kenny, Secretary Kenny, what should be my next move? What would you tell him?
I think this has been the plague from the beginning that they were opening up. Like the callers have said, they've exposed themselves. Trump knew this was probably going to happen. And Grace talks about, we lost. She said, we got to go home and admit we lost. I mean, we've got Space Force. No one even knows what we've done in these last so many missions is insane. Trump always says senseless killing. The things he's done and the millions of lives or hundreds of thousands of lives he's saved.
Well, yeah, you're right. He saved many, many lives. And look, this thing is not over.